Hello there. Remember me? I remember you, and I'm glad to be back. Need a week off, as you might have noticed throughout this radio station. Dan Patrick, Jim Rome, Rich Eisen, and myself all colluded to all be off last week. I don't know if you knew that, but we colluded. And some of us are back. Rome's back. I'm back. And hopefully you're back as well. And I appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or through the new Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health and Mental Health and Well-Being for All. Might be a little bit rusty today, so bear with me. And if you didn't even notice I was gone, just don't tell me, because I can't take that. I have to think that you were just distraught and didn't know what to do with yourself since I wasn't on the last week. But I'm back now, and I'm back for the foreseeable future, because we got some things coming up, don't we? NFL training camp right around the corner. We'll talk some Broncos today. Rookies report on Wednesday, or will they? Of course, if you would like to interact with the show, you could do so at 719-247-1313, or you can hit me up on X at Gingerly Tweets. Let me start in a place that I don't normally start shows, for good reason. And if I do lead off a show with a topic pertaining to a particular team, it's usually negative. This isn't necessarily a negative story. But I am starting with the Colorado Rockies. You will notice when you watch highlights, either on television last night, if you watched the MLB draft, or you've seen some stuff on social media over the last 24 hours, you'll notice that Ethan Holiday wears an S on his hat. Now, that S, contrary to popular belief, does not stand for Stillwater, the high school that he goes to. It stands for hope. What the Rockies got with the fourth pick in the draft last night was not as much the top high school player in America, which Ethan Holiday is. They got hope, or what they hope will be hope to Rockies fans. The hope of a dawn after what has been the darkest days of this franchise's history. And that's why they could not let Ethan Holiday slip past them at 4. Now, if you notice, it's not like the Rockies to take a high school player. The last high school player they drafted with their top pick was in 2001. Their last 5 first-round picks have all been college guys. And if you notice the rest of the Rockies draft, it's pretty much all college guys. That has been as difficult as it is to figure out if there is any discernible direction or idea that this organization has. Do they even have ideas? One idea that it seems like they have is we don't take high school players highly in drafts. Just seems like it. Recent history would suggest that. But they could not, if that is something that they set out to do, if they would prefer college players, Ethan Holiday is a high school player that they could not afford to pass up. Because for all that the Rockies don't know about team building, pitching, winning, competency as an organization. They do have a knack for finding little ways to get you off of their back for a minute. You ever notice that? Now, it doesn't work across the board, doesn't work for everyone, it doesn't last long, but they always kind of do things along the way to throw Rockies fans a little bit of a bone, to get Rockies critics to talk about something in a more positive way. And that opportunity, an opportunity like that, fell into their lap last night. I am not going to diminish because I'm very high on Ethan Holiday as a baseball player. Okay, he deserved to go 4th overall. So I'm not trying to diminish him as a prospect or as a baseball player by likening him to the party deck. But in the more immediate future, before this guy actually gets to the major leagues, that's kind of the same purpose that he's serving. Right? What is the party deck? The party deck is a way to distract you from what is going on the field, which is absolutely putrid and not worth your hard-earned money. Until Ethan Holiday actually gets to 20th and Blake, he's serving that same purpose. Pay no attention to the fact that this team almost lost 100 games before the All-Star break. That's maybe being a little bit hyperbolic. They have 74 losses. They've won 22 baseball games. They're on track to clear the worst or go under the lowest bar that has ever been set in Major League Baseball history when it comes to winning games. They're 4 ahead of the pace in terms of losses that the White Sox had last year. They're terrible. You know this. I'm not breaking any news to you. So until Ethan Holiday actually steps onto the field at 20th and Blake, he's going to serve the same purpose as an offseason of signing Chris Bryant or a building of the party deck or any theme night they may have or any celebration of the Blake Street Bombers or Todd Helton or just the fact Todd Helton's getting into the Hall of Fame. Like, they do have a knack for finding these ways to, at least for a little while, or at least for some people, change the story, divert your attention away from the main thing. Because Ethan Holiday, being a high school player, you're going to have to wait a little bit on this guy. But now the Rockies have the thing that they can continuously go back to try and distract you from what is going on. And look, it's not just because of who Ethan Holiday is as a player. I could make the argument right now that Charlie Condon, who the Rockies took last year with the same pick, 4th overall, is a more accomplished and more major league ready player than Ethan Holiday is at this point. He's a better baseball player than Ethan Holiday is. And yet the drafting of Charlie Condon was not met with nearly the same emotion, the same excitement, whatever you want to call it, as Ethan Holiday is. Because it's not just that Ethan Holiday is the best high school player in America. And like other best high school players in America would represent a chance for a franchise to get their new face. But it allows the Rockies to tap into nostalgia. And nostalgia is the most powerful drug there is. And as soon as Ethan Holiday, or really as soon as that pitcher from LSU went to the Mariners right before the Rockies, you knew that they had all of the baby Ethan Holiday content ready to roll. There was no way the Rockies were going to pass. Even the Rockies. Like, I get it. You don't put anything past them. There was no way Ethan Holiday was getting past them at 4. But all of a sudden, you see the Rocky social media account. Here's toddler Ethan Holiday. Here's baby Ethan Holiday. Remember Matt Holiday? Like, all this nostalgia that the Rockies started to serve up. So much so, in fact, that Matt Holiday was on the Zoom call last night with his son. That is not standard operating procedure. When a draftee meets, Neat Clifford, just to go back to recently, Neat Clifford goes in the first round to the Sacramento Kings. He didn't have a parent with him on the Zoom call with Sacramento reporters, but yet there was Matt Holiday with Ethan, right? To tap in to that nostalgia even more, to be like, just in case anyone thought for a second, wait, is Ethan the son of Matt? Yes. Yes, he is. And you have been beaten over the head with that fact over the last 24 hours. And then when Matt Holiday, a 7-time All-Star, a franchise legend, says something like this, it further perpetuates what I am talking about.
It doesn't take too long to get things like this turned around. And so I'm excited for Ethan to be part of a turnaround and getting things headed back in the right direction. And I think they have some really good young players and some guys down in the minor leagues that are chomping at the bit to get a chance to get this thing turned around. So again, grateful that the Rockies thought enough of Ethan to pick him, and we're excited to be part of this.
So Matt's even feeding into it, which you wouldn't expect. He's not towing a company line. He's more touting his son. Right? My son can be, like I was, a part of good Rockies history, which has been, few and far between. But it's just going to feed more into it. But really what Ethan Holiday becomes, more than somewhat of a distraction to people who have been, dogging on the Rockies or refusing to go to the Rockies, all that hope stuff, he becomes the most eagerly anticipated prospect in the history of that franchise. Bar none. He is literally going to have the hopes and dreams of a franchise on his shoulders in a way that Nolan Arenado, Carlos Gonzalez, Todd Helton, you go down the list. There isn't one guy, certainly not his dad. Ethan Holiday is going to be that for the Colorado Rockies. The minute he shows up in Denver, he is going to be the face of the franchise. I don't care who else is on the roster at that time. Ethan Holiday is going to be that guy. And he is, because of his lineage, he is going to be expected to bring forth that, despite how terrible this organization is. He's going to be expected to usher in the next 2 or 3 year stretch of good Rockies baseball. And that's a lot on his shoulders. And he's a high school kid. Here's Holiday on the Ethan Holiday, because I need to differentiate. Here's Ethan Holiday on having the opportunity to turn around a franchise like the Rockies.
I think the opportunity is very similar with really most teams. And I'm going to take it day by day and start training here soon. And control what I can control through this whole process, and I haven't really thought that far, honestly. So I'm just excited for what's next and what's to come here in the next couple weeks.
Now, none of this is to say that Ethan Holiday can't do all of these things. Right? This is not me saying Ethan Holiday is never going to make it, because I have a feeling that he's going to be a terrific Major League Baseball player. I'm not saying that he can't do this, but I'm saying he has to. He has to. He is carrying this franchise on his shoulders, and he hasn't even played a single professional baseball game yet. Any Rockies fans that are still left in this state will be counting down the days. They might as well just, instead of putting, the two lineups or highlights or anything like that on the big video board, if Ethan's playing at the same time, whether it's in Spokane or Albuquerque or, in the Arizona Fall League, put his game on the screen. That's all anybody would care about. And that would track with the Colorado Rockies, right? You can stand on the party deck and watch Ethan Holiday rather than watching the Rockies on the field. Like, the countdown has begun. Now, I don't trust the reason why Ethan Holiday will work and will give the Rockies a chance to be decent again is not because of the Rockies. Make no mistake about that. Because I don't believe in anything that organization does. But I believe in Ethan's dad. I believe in his brother. So while Ethan Holiday has a bit of a burden on his shoulders, given that he's playing for the same organization his father did, and it is a burden, and it will be a burden at times, he also has maybe the best support system and the best people to help him along in his personal life. So I don't trust the Rockies to develop Ethan Holiday, but I trust Matt Holiday to develop Ethan, as he did Jackson, Ethan's older brother. So I'm not going, this is not me at all saying that Ethan Holiday won't make it. And I hope he does. Right? But I mean, this is a lighter version of Cooper Flagg landing in Dallas. Like the feeling that is going on in the Metroplex right now, not that they've forgotten about trading Luka Doncic or they don't lament the fact that Luka Doncic is not there. They still do. They still want Nico Harrison fired. They know that Cooper Flagg ended up in Dallas through no effort whatsoever on Nico Harrison's part. Just like Ethan Holiday is not on the Colorado Rockies or in the Rockies organization because of anything good that the Rockies did. In that way, they don't even deserve Ethan Holiday to be in their organization. But he's going to kind of represent the same thing of, yeah, it sucks now, but maybe it can be better later. Maybe one day it will be all right. And that's what Ethan Holiday represents. And it's an opportunity for the Rockies organization they absolutely were not going to pass up. And you will be inundated with Ethan Holiday content for the next 2 or 3 years until he gets to Coors Field, and then you'll be inundated even more. He's that. He's the hope of the Rockies. He's their face of the franchise. He's all of this kind of stuff before he's even stepped foot on a professional baseball field. It's a lot. but he does have a couple people in his family that can help him. Take your thoughts on the Rockies drafting the younger of the Holiday brothers. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, why the announcement of the Jonas Valanciunas trade was not signaling the end of this saga. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. The Black Keys are hitting the road for their No Rain, No Flowers tour, along with Gary Clark Jr. and the Heavy Heavy, and we want to send you to see them at the U.S. tour stop of your choice. Just text the national keyword OVER to 95819. That's OVER to 95819. And reminder that you can listen all day long to hear the national keywords, and they do change every so often. So keep listening for your chance to win. Contest rules at extrasports.com. 1300.com. Let's fire up the text line for the first time in more than a week. This coming in from the 575. Miss you like a fat kid misses cake. That's sweet of you to lie like that. You were just fine without me. But I do appreciate that lie. Brett says, I spent the morning looking at Ethan Holiday's swing and has a lot of room for improvement. This is a good pick in a lot of experts' eyes, but it will not change the trajectory that the Rockies are in. It is basically a publicity stunt, and he will be traded for some insignificant left-handed reliever. As far as the swing goes, you're right. He's made some adjustments to his swing, and it's something they talked about last night. Just the stride, the toe tap. So, but he's a high school player. Like, that's normal. And I think it's part of the reason why the Rockies have gone away from high school players with their highest draft picks in recent years, is because they're like, well, we can't help them. I mean, maybe subconsciously they feel that way, but on some level, they're like, yeah, we're not any good at this. We need a more finished product. We need guys that are as close to the major leagues as we could possibly get. And even then, we'll probably screw them up somehow. Like, I understand the skepticism. But that's why I say I'm not believing in the Rockies' ability either. But look, Nolan Arenado existed, Todd Helton existed, Matt Holliday existed. Like, it's not that they've never had all-star caliber players. But who do you give credit to? And that's why I say I don't trust the Rockies, but I trust Matt Holliday. The Holliday family is like baseball royalty. All of a sudden, with Jackson and now Ethan. And I think Matt Holliday is uniquely qualified to help Ethan along in his Rockies career, however long that may last, because he's like, I know how bad they are. I was in this organization. You're going to take what they say, and it's going to go one ear out the other, and you're going to come home to Stillwater, and we're going to go to our batting cage, and I'm going to get you ready. Like, that's who I trust, is Matt Holliday. I understand the skepticism. I do. And here's the thing. If Matt Holliday, even if he hits, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, let's say he is Shohei Ohtani. He's not, right? But I'm just using the most extreme example that I can. If Ethan Holliday is as impactful, or maybe let's do Mookie Betts, right? Because Ethan Holliday won't pitch. Even if he's Mookie Betts, and we have this stat called wins above replacement, add Mookie Betts, like, just do this exercise. Add Mookie Betts, add anyone in Major League history for any one season in WAR to the Rockies record. Instead of 22, if Ethan Holliday is the greatest baseball player to walk planet Earth, this Rockies team, instead of 22 wins at the All-Star break, would have like 32. And that's saying that WAR is like the WAR of one player actually impacts the wins of one of the team. Let's say Ethan Holliday adds 10 games to the Rockies win total. They still have 32 going into the All-Star break. They're still bad. That's why when the Rockies were good last time, look at the number of players that they've had. Right? It was LeMahieu, and it was Story, and it was Arenado. Like, Ethan Holliday can't just make the Rockies good on his own. But he's going to be expected to move the needle and be the face of the next decent Rockies team. And that comes along with that burden is unreal expectation. But you get it, Brett. Like, even if Ethan Holliday is, a demigod when it comes to baseball. Still 8 other guys on the field with him. There's still a pitching staff he has to rely upon. So the Rockies can't just hit on Ethan Holiday and be like, we'll just add Ethan Holiday to this motley crew that we're throwing out on a daily basis and expect to compete. But he represents that. He's going to have that burden on his shoulders. He's going to be expected to be a Tulo, a Matt Holiday, if you will, a Nolan Arenado. And he's going to carry with him as he moves through the minor league system the weight of the hopes of a fan base. It's a lot. Now, I kind of find some similarities with the Jonas Valanciunas thing. If I really missed out on anything while I was out for a week in terms of being able to be on this show and talk, it's probably the Jonas Valanciunas saga. And yesterday, the trade was announced that Dario Saric had been traded for Jonas Valanciunas. And I got onto social media and I see all of these Nuggets fans going like, take that, Greece, and like going to verbal war with a European country. Like, we won. And I'm like, why are they celebrating? This is just a step. This is not the final step here. We knew all along that the trade was going to be finalized. That did not guarantee that Jonas Valanciunas would be playing for the Denver Nuggets. A buyout could still theoretically happen. So I didn't understand the victory lap. Like, just because the trade was announced, this thing is done. It's not over yet. And that's what I was thinking yesterday. I said, we got to see this thing through to the introductory press conference. Until he's sitting in Denver at Ball Arena talking about how happy he is to be a Denver Nugget, I don't think this thing is over yet. And sure enough, what should I see this morning from Eurohoops? Quote, when I am sure, I will talk about everything. When you're sure of what? Like, you are a Denver Nugget. The trade is official. What do you need to be sure about? He's still not committing to his NBA future. He is still holding out some hope that he gets bought out. And that is somewhat problematic. And here's why I compare Jonas Valanciunas to Ethan Holiday. What Jonas Valanciunas is supposed to be for the Denver Nuggets is only going to grow exponentially as this goes along. So in this way, he's not doing himself any favors. There was a tweet from Eddie Johnson, who does a show on NBA radio on Sirius. He's part of the Suns broadcast team, I think. He tweeted out that essentially, why would Jonas Valanciunas want to play for the Nuggets? Because all the plus minus stat geeks are going to criticize him because they can't find fault with anything Jokic does. Now, I don't think that Jonas Valanciunas is thinking about that at all. But I also don't think that Eddie Johnson is completely wrong in his assessment. And it's only getting worse because already he represents a chance for the Denver Nuggets to figure out their bench problems and their non-Jokic minutes. David Adelman said it himself at Summer League. Jonas Valanciunas is the closest thing to Nikola Jokic they have had coming off the bench since DeMarcus Cousins. And you know the way I feel about DeMarcus Cousins and his fit with the Denver Nuggets. And I see it. I understand why David Adelman would say that. But that's a lot of pressure that's being put on Jonas Valanciunas to fix something that is unequivocally broken and has been broken for years with the Denver Nuggets. And by years, I mean like 2, maybe 3. So it hasn't been, I mean, it's years technically, but not like decades. But it's only going to get worse now. And I saw it in the reaction to the trade being finalized. Like, we got him. We got our man. We're keeping him. And it's like, now the expectations are going to start to get out of hand a little bit. If he does indeed play for the Denver Nuggets, which, again, is not 100%, no matter what anyone will tell you. Now it's like, you can just imagine, the first game where Jonas Valanciunas stinks up the joint, which is going to happen, and the Denver Nuggets bench squanders a 20-point lead or against the Minnesota Timberwolves or in some high-profile game. And the reaction's going to be, this is the guy that the Nuggets had to fight so hard to keep? Like, it's going to happen. And Jonas Valanciunas, by the way, is contributing to this. Like, Valanciunas could just put an end to all of this. Instead of speaking in riddles like he did last week in his native Lithuania and what he did this morning, he could just say, you know what? I'm happy to be a Denver Nugget. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to try to help them win a championship. What every single NBA player says every time they get traded or sign as a free agent. He could easily say that and put all of this to bed. He doesn't want to. And he doesn't want to because he has a more lucrative offer from that team in Greece. This was even reported late last week that the Nuggets are not going to guarantee the second year of his contract. So he's got, what is it, a 3-year deal in Greece? Or essentially a 1-year prove-it deal in the NBA? I don't blame Jonas Valanciunas for being like, I kind of want to go to Greece. Now, he can't, and that's what makes this kind of all absurd, is that he's actually not allowed to leave. He can't choose. He's not a free agent, but he's been talking like he is one. Well, I'll, weigh in and I'll hear out the Denver Nuggets. Like, dude, what are you talking about? They own your rights. You can't just up and go to Greece. But he's acting like he has 2 teams fighting over him. And in a way, I guess he does, but he's not legally allowed to leave. Or not, I shouldn't say legally. The power that the NBA has in the global basketball community, it just wouldn't happen. FIBA would not, for fear of what the NBA might do to them, they would not grant this move. So it's all very bizarre that this is kind of happening with Jonas Valanciunas. But I say he's not allowed to leave and he's not a free agent, but here would be my fear for you if you're a Nuggets fan. Okay, we know that players wield more power in basketball than they maybe do in any other sport. Okay, and I'm not talking that Jonas Valanciunas can force the Denver Nuggets necessarily to let him out of his contract to agree to a buyout. I don't know that Jonas has that level of power. But let me spin you a scenario. We're ready for opening night with the Denver Nuggets. And Jonas Valanciunas has got a little bit of a calf thing little bit of hamstring issue. Not going to play. You don't think you're going to look at that a little bit suspiciously? This is, Al Horford's name has been brought up a little bit. I would prefer Jonas Valanciunas over Al Horford. The fit is better. He's younger, more productive. Like, I would take, if you gave me the choice between the two, I would take Jonas Valanciunas. However, would I want a motivated Al Horford? Because I get it. Jonas Valanciunas, he's a professional and he's going to act in a professional manner. But think about Game 7 against Oklahoma City, what Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter played through, right? They, in some ways, especially Aaron Gordon, given the rash of Achilles injuries we have seen in the NBA over the last calendar year, he put himself in a real predicament. He could have ripped his Achilles like Tatum, like Halliburton, and missed an entire year. And who knows what his future would have been like. But he gutted it out. He toughed it out to try and help the Denver Nuggets win. Do you think that Jonas Valanciunas saying, when I am sure I will talk about everything, and everything you've heard about this, you think Jonas Valanciunas is going to do that? Especially when the Nuggets maybe aren't going to guarantee the second year of his deal? I'm not talking about Jonas Valanciunas tanking with the Denver Nuggets or being unprofessional. I'm just saying there comes a time where you're kind of 50-50 on whether you're going to push through an injury. And be there for your team. Are you going to get that buy-in from Jonas Valanciunas all the time? Are you going to can you imagine him doing the same thing Aaron Gordon did or Michael Porter did? With all this going on, I don't know that I can believe that. So that's why I keep going back to, this isn't done until Jonas Valanciunas sits at a microphone at Ball Arena and says all of that other stuff. It's over. It's done with. I'm happy to be in Denver, and I'm going to give my all for this team to win a championship. And until that happens, and until those words come out of his mouth, I'm going to be a little skeptical. I get from a basketball perspective why he's being brought in. We've talked about that. He's a great fit. He can contribute everything that the Nuggets think he will be. I believe he can be. But there's a difference between, being professional, that's showing up to work every day on time and all that kind of stuff. And there's, giving your all once you're at work. And going that extra little bit, right, that we saw Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter. I don't know that this guy's going to do that. So he may be technically a Denver Nugget right now. But is he all in on the Denver Nuggets? Sure doesn't sound like that as recently as this morning. And that, if I'm Ben Tenzer and John Wallace and David Adelman and Josh Kroenke, because there are a lot of people now getting in on the decision-making, it would give me pause. Am I getting a highly motivated player that is going to pull in the same direction as everybody else, given how fleeting the moments are left with the best player walking planet Earth? So this thing's not done yet, even though the trade itself has been finalized. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. The DoD Warrior Games has returned to Colorado Springs with men and women representing the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and Special Operations Command, all competing in a variety of adaptive sports at Colorado College. Support the resiliency and dedication of military service members at dodwarriorgames.com. I will be broadcasting the show all week long from the Warrior Games next week, starting 1 week from today, and we'll be chatting with many of those service members who are competing in the Warrior Games. If you've been here long enough to remember, the last one was at the Air Force Academy, and it's just one of the most significant sporting events that you can ever attend. Even if you just go for a day, an afternoon, an evening, a morning, just to be in the presence of those athletes and those service members. They're both now. They're service members and they're athletes. And just hearing their stories and everything, it's an unbelievable experience. It really is. And excited to be out there all week next week, bringing you some of the stories of these competitors. So look for that next week. But in the meantime, dodwarriorgames.com. Get more information. Plan your visit. Again, it's at Colorado College, using the many sporting venues that CC has. So that's coming up. It actually, Friday is the first day. I don't know if there's any competition, but it's certainly, the competition gets going in earnest over the weekend. And then I'll be out there all next week. So all this stuff is happening with the Denver Nuggets. All these trades, all these signings are now done, right? The Porter for Cam Johnson swap obviously had to happen before all of this other stuff, because it's what gave the Nuggets the flexibility to go out and sign Tim Hardaway, to trade for Jonas Valanciunas, to Bruce Brown. They probably could have gotten done anyway. And they actually, didn't they announce Bruce Brown before the Cam Johnson trade? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But the Cam Johnson trade was the big catalyst, right? Because it opened up the flexibility to go out and make all these other moves. Meanwhile, the Avs have done one thing over the past week. Did not miss much Avs news while I was out. Josh Manson signing a 2-year extension, and it's going to be for less per year than he's going to get paid this year. Like, Josh Manson is being extended and taking a pay decrease. So I know that some Avs fans, Josh, I don't know what it is about that pairing, but like the Josh Manson, Sam Girard pairing, take just those two guys alone, take the most heat of anybody on the Avalanche at all times. But a second D-pairing guy taking a pay decrease to stay with the team, this is a tidy bit of business done by Chris McFarland. And he's known for this stuff more than anything else. And I know he made the big Mikko Rantanen trade, which begat the Brock Nelson deal. So he's done a little bit of everything. But when I think of Chris McFarland and what his strength is, it's deals like this, which is why the Marty Necas story this year is going to be so fascinating, because Chris McFarland usually gets these deals done. But of course, a very noticeable exception to that was Mikko Rantanen. But the Avalanche will argue that they chose to trade Mikko Rantanen in order to get deeper. So the Marty Necas thing is really going to put Chris McFarland's ability to get these extensions done, because since he took over the gig, He's locked up everybody. So this is a good bit of business. I have no issue with the Avalanche bringing back Josh Manson for a couple more years at less money than he's going to make this year. But I'm still left with the feeling of, okay, what else? Why did you trade Charlie Coyle? Was it to just also get rid of Miles Wood? Josh Manson's extension has little to do with your salary cap table for this year. It has nothing to do with it. When that move was made, it had the feeling of the Avalanche are getting ready to do something significant. And what they have done since making that Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood trade is done virtually nothing. And I just don't see why you make a move like that if all you're looking for are some more depth forwards. So either something that the Avs were trying to do fell through, or their offseason is not done yet. I mean, their offseason is not done yet anyway, because they still haven't acquired the depth forwards that they need. Their roster is incomplete. But by trading Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood, they essentially opened up more cap space than a couple of depth wingers would require. It gave the feeling that there was something bigger at play here. And yet, all that's been done since is signing Josh Manson to a 2-year extension, which will cost the Avalanche less money than it does this year, than Josh Manson does this year. So I'm still left with the question of what else? What's next? What was Chris McFarland angling for a couple of weeks ago that has not happened yet or will not happen because it fell through? Because the Natchez extension, again, doesn't have the Charlie Coyle trade was look like it was to open up money now. They could trade Charlie Coyle at the trade deadline. They could have traded him before free agency began next year to afford Marty Natchez. That's not what this is about. This is about something else. And I don't know what it is. Because they haven't done anything except this Josh Manson extension. Now, do they have to do something significant? No. I think they're in a good spot. I think you have to look at them as the favorites to come out of the West. They're not alone in terms of contender status. There are other teams, but I think I would put them above Vegas, slightly above Edmonton. So do they need to make a more significant move? No. Doesn't hurt to make a more significant move. Can only help your chances. So still waiting to see what the Avs... I mean, they have to do something. Right? It's just when they're actually done adding to this roster, are you going to say that's why they traded Charlie Coyle? Or are you going to go, why did they trade Charlie Coyle if all they were going to do was bring in a couple of, bottom 6 guys? Coming up next, Broncos rookies are scheduled to report on Wednesday to training camp, but the 2 biggest and most impactful, we think, rookies are not even technically Denver Broncos yet. What's going on there? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Monday. Good to be talking to you again. Good to be seen as well after a week away. You can watch the show live on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. During the break, just catching up with Aaron. Regularly calls into the show. Good to hear from them. Good to hear from you at 719-247-1313. Some teams' rookies in the NFL have reported. We're just, couple weeks away from the Hall of Fame game? It's coming up, right? So rookies starting to report all across the NFL. Broncos, their rookies are going to report on Wednesday. We think. There are kind of some developing situations with members of this most recent draft class, and maybe you've seen this. There are 2 first-round picks in the NFL that are not currently signed by their NFL teams. And there are all but 2 second-round picks that are unsigned by their teams. The Broncos qualify in both columns. Shamar Stewart and Jahdae Barron are the only 2 first-round picks who have not signed with their teams. And the reason why this is kind of floated under the radar is, I think, one, because we just, now that it's a rookie scale, we just expect these things to get done immediately, and we don't really follow it on a day-to-day basis. It's almost a foregone conclusion. Well, of course they're going to sign. They don't have to haggle over signing bonus or anything like that. And also the fact that Jahdae Barron showed up at rookie minicamp. Like, he was there. He didn't hold out. So I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know that Jahdae Barron had not signed his rookie deal yet, but he hasn't. And why so many second-round picks have not signed their deals is because the Houston Texans, if you ask the NFL owners, ruined it for everybody. They gave their second-round pick, Jaden Higgins, a fully guaranteed contract. And now everyone else, poor Carson Schweinsteiger, the linebacker that the Browns drafted out of UCLA, poor guy signed on the dotted line too soon. Didn't get the guaranteed deal, but he's already locked in. But every second-round pick, including RJ Harvey, haven't signed yet. Because they're all waiting to see if they can get a guaranteed deal that Jaden Higgins got. Precedent has been set. Second-round picks can get fully guaranteed rookie deals. Now, it's a rookie deal. We're not talking Deshaun Watson money here, but it is fully guaranteed. So the Broncos are not alone when it comes to what they're dealing with RJ Harvey. But they are in a group I don't think that they would really like to be in, which is with the Cincinnati Bengals when it comes to their first-round pick. Why hasn't Jahdae Barron signed yet? This leads in to the reporting that Pablo Torre did last week. I don't know if you saw his podcast with Mike Florio about this 61-page ruling in the grievance the NFLPA levied against the NFL owners, saying they colluded to not give out any more guaranteed contracts like the one that Deshaun Watson got from the Browns. In that ruling, there's a Broncos piece of this. And part of it was Russell Wilson. It centers around Russell Wilson. The Broncos unwilling to give Russell Wilson a fully guaranteed deal that he was asking for, by the way. They were not willing to do that. But according to this document, Greg Penner, the owner of the Denver Broncos, sent an email to someone saying that George Paton would feel good about it for us as a franchise and the benchmark it sets versus Watson for the league. So at first blush, you hear the news that Greg Penner told the Broncos to hold up on signing Russell Wilson to a fully guaranteed contract, and you're going, yeah, way to go, Greg Penner. Save the Broncos bacon in that regard. But maybe his motivations were not solely because he had some reservations about Russell Wilson. It was, or at least in part, maybe that was part of it. But a big part of it, too, was to kind of, I don't know, recalibrate the NFL model, because every player thought that after Deshaun Watson got his guaranteed contract, at least quarterbacks thought that they were all going to get guaranteed deals. Fully guaranteed. And it seems like Greg Penner was trying to carry out the bidding of the NFL, trying to be the good soldier. You know, he's the new guy in town. I don't know, trying to make a good first impression, trying to be the most popular guy at the owners' meetings. I don't know what it is, but it seems like there was a concerted effort, or at least part of the motivation to not sign Russell Wilson to the fully guaranteed contract was to kind of take some of the power back that the Browns had voluntarily relinquished by giving Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract, which just goes to show that as much as you love the new training facility, or will love it, and you love the fact that he's putting new sod down at Empower Field and building a big old scoreboard, Greg Penner is much like every other owner in the NFL. When it comes down, this idea that Greg Penner is going to do whatever it takes to win, that no price is too high. There's a price that's too high. Right? The Broncos believed, and this is before Sean Payton came in and got his eyes on Russell Wilson. This was before Sean Payton got there. The Broncos were under an assumption, or were operating with the idea that in order to secure the services of Russell Wilson, to live up to their end of the bargain, I suppose, was he'd waive his no trade clause and get a fully guaranteed contract. Or maybe that at least was Russell Wilson's hope, and the Broncos were willing to go forward with that. But Greg Penner steps in and says, even though you believe this guy is your new franchise quarterback, I'm not willing to pay that price. Now, it ultimately worked out for the Denver Broncos, but it's just a reminder that we shouldn't be so effusive in our praise for professional sports owners, especially ones in the NFL. They are not going to go all in like you as a fan. They're not as fully invested. They have a financial interest. And if it puts them in a bad spot, if it puts their fellow out, I think Greg Penner and other NFL owners, he's not alone in this. I think Greg Penner, if it comes down to you, a player on his team, or a fellow owner, he will side with the third choice. And it's why the NFL owners continue to crush the NFLPA in every CBA negotiation. They get everything they want because they are united in a way that no other ownership group in any other sport is. So it's just around, and I'm not trying to say that Greg Penner hasn't done good things for the Denver Broncos, and this was ultimately a good thing. I don't know that it's great that, because this seems to me, in this reporting from Pablo Torre, it seems to me like the NFL owners did collude. And I said collusion's very hard to prove. You really have to have like an email chain. And lo and behold, email from Greg Penner. I don't know that that's great. I don't think that that should be celebrated, but ultimately it worked out for the Denver Broncos. So I go back to RJ Harvey and Jahdae Barron. Couldn't it be argued? And I guess we have to find out what exactly Jahdae Barron is arguing with the Denver Broncos about. But wouldn't it be within the realm of possibility that he's arguing with the Denver Broncos about the same thing Shamar Stewart is arguing with the Bengals about? And is just not being as vocal about it? Because everybody celebrated when Shamar Stewart was like saying that the Bengals were more interested in winning arguments than winning football games. Well, if Barron is having the same conflict with the Denver Broncos, couldn't you apply those words to the Denver Broncos? This is supposed to be easy. So we have to find, I'll wait till we ultimately find out, if we ever do, on what the sticking point here is. But this is not a group that the Denver Broncos want to be in. That they haven't secured the services of their first round pick like the Bengals. So perhaps the Broncos are more interested in winning an argument than winning games. Because it could be the very same thing that the Bengals are trying to take away from Shamar Stewart and take out of his contract. Broncos might be trying to do the same thing. I get the thing with the second round picks. There are a lot of owners with Greg Penner on this that don't want to sign their second round pick to fully guaranteed contracts. There's more strength in numbers there. You only have you and Mike Brown. That's not an owner you want to be compared to. So I don't know what the holdup is with Jahdae Barron. I know what it is with RJ Harvey. Get it done. It's not a good look for the Denver Broncos to be a team with both their first and second round picks unsigned. Now, how does this ultimately manifest itself on the field, especially if Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey showed up to rookie minicamp? Which, credit to the both of them for doing that. They didn't have to do that. At some point, the rubber is going to have to meet the road. At some point, Barron and RJ Harvey have to decide if this is something that they're going to hold out over. Because I can't imagine they're willing to continue on, get into training camp without a contract. So they have to decide whether this is worth holding out over. And especially for RJ Harvey, if he were to take that next step and hold out, or just if this uncertainty surrounding his contract is out there, he's kind of in a crowded room. Not saying that anybody in the Broncos running back room is elite, but Sean Payton has said this. It's difficult to get 3 running backs touches. At what point does Sean Payton look at RJ Harvey and be like, you know what? He's not even signed yet. Maybe he's going to hold out. I'm going to invest a little bit more in training camp in Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin. And now RJ Harvey, who's widely expected to be the most productive of all the running backs on the Denver Broncos this year, might be kind of in some ways the odd man out because of this. So, yes, there is still time between now and the start of the NFL season, but this is immediately the top story going into Broncos training camp. Because now everyone's paying attention. Now everybody's looking. And people are wondering, why are the Broncos and the Bengals the only two teams that don't have their first round pick signed? And people are now figuring out the Jaden Higgins thing and why so many second round picks are not signed to contracts yet. So there will be a tipping point. It's not today. It's probably not Wednesday, although Wednesday's all about the rookies. So Barron and RJ Harvey will be the first guys that people are looking for. They showed up for rookie minicamp. I would expect them to show up to report for training camp. But the longer this goes on, the more of a possibility a holdout is. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But the NFL owners and Greg Penner and Mike Brown, they're steadfast. They're not willing to bend. And Greg Penner has already shown, according to these legal documents, that if he can help advance the agenda of his fellow NFL owners, he will do it. Because they are a tight-knit brotherhood. And if any of one of them, if too many of them give in, then the NFLPA is going to have power over the NFL owners that maybe you see in the NBA. I got to imagine that NFL owners' worst nightmare, that they wake up in a cold sweat imagining a day where their players' union has the power of the NBA players' union. Can't let that happen. So perhaps this is the Broncos trying to set another precedence for the NFL owners. I don't know. But it's the storyline going into Wednesday. RJ Harvey, Jahdae Barron, why aren't they signed? Will they sign? And are they willing to hold out over this? A lot of people are raising their expectations for the Denver Broncos based on those two players. Not solely, but in part. What if they hold out? 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Coming up next, why the Denver Nuggets trade, we've been looking at it on how the Denver Nuggets won the trade with the Brooklyn Nets, but this actually might be a win for everybody, including Michael Porter. Talk about that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Don't forget that national keyword if you want a chance to see the Black Keys on their No Rain, No Flowers tour at the U.S. tour stop of your choice. It is over, OVER. If you text that to 95819, you will be entered to win. What do you win? Trip for two, including round-trip air, a 2-night hotel stay, and 2 premium tickets to see the Black Keys in concert in your chosen city. Prize provided by Live Nation. Contest rules at extrasports1300.com. So all the moves so far for the Denver Nuggets have gone through. They do still have the ability to bring in another veteran. I expect them to, whether it'll be Al Horford or it'll be somebody a little bit less significant remains to be seen, but I don't think that the Nuggets are completely done with the offseason yet. And of course, they have to figure out things with Jonas Valanciunas. But the most significant trade and the most significant move they've made, without equivocation, is the trade for Cam Johnson. Right? Because it opened up the financial flexibility to go get Tim Hardaway, to trade for Jonas Valanciunas. It was a reset of the Nuggets' finances in many ways. So the Nuggets win just in that regard. I think they also win because while Cam Johnson and Michael Porter are very similar, the differences, however few there may be, are actually the reason why you could argue Cam Johnson is a better fit with the Denver Nuggets than Michael Porter is. And that's the ability for cutting. You know, at times Michael Porter would kind of camp out, right, at the three-point line and wait for a pass to come his way. Cam Johnson is a little bit more active in terms of cutting to the basket, and I would expect that to fit. That's going to fit very well with the way that the Denver Nuggets like to play. But again, it's why Cam Johnson might be an even better fit with Michael Porter. And Michael Porter was a good fit for the Denver Nuggets. Cam Johnson might be a better one. And they open up the flexibility to get all the other players they've gotten this offseason. The win for the Brooklyn Nets is that they get a first-round pick long after the Nuggets championship window is closed. Right? And who knows what Nikola Jokic looks like in the 2030s. Is he still playing for him? Is he on the Lakers? Who knows? But that's the win for Brooklyn. That's why they did this. Haven't really considered how this impacts Michael Porter. And admittedly, it's not the first thing you think about, right? Or when the trade went down, we were talking about how it impacts the Denver Nuggets, and for good reason, right? But I've thought about this more over the last few days because Michael Porter did a video on YouTube. And he's been asked about these comments in Brooklyn since he arrived. He talked about plateauing in Denver. And I don't know that that's a phenomenon that many people were thinking about with Michael Porter. Like, because by saying he may have plateaued in Denver means that there was more that Michael Porter was capable of. And it's not really something that has been thought of a little bit or very much at all around here. But I think I see where Michael Porter is going with this. Because if you think back to when he was drafted, A player like him is supposed to end up on a team like Brooklyn. He's supposed to end up on a bad team where he can do whatever he wants at any time because he is by far their best player. Whatever that looks like, right? Having the ball in his hands all the time. That's the kind of situation he was supposed to be in. But because of the injury concerns, he falls to a team that already has option 1 and option 2 cemented. They had Murray and Jokic, and Porter was just icing on the cake. He fell to them. They're not supposed to get a player of Michael Porter's talents. But because they already had Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic and already had a decent team established, they put Michael Porter in a box. And they said, you do this and you do this. We don't need anything else from you. We're good. We don't need you to have the ball constantly. We don't need you to do X, Y, and Z. We need you to make open threes and rebound. And I guess a little bit later on, be at least a willing defender. But it wasn't the number of things that if Porter would have been drafted by this Brooklyn team, what they would ask. They would have said, we need you to do everything. So Michael Porter was kind of shoved into that box, not because he didn't have the talent to do more, but it wasn't necessary. They play through Jokic. They have the two-man game of Murray and Jokic. So they had this player who maybe was capable of more. They just didn't need him to be capable of more. But then also when Michael Porter didn't do the few things that he was asked to do, yet he was being compensated handsomely for it, that's where the ire of Nuggets fans got up, right? You know, if Michael Porter's not rebounding, if he's not shooting, then what good is he to the Denver Nuggets? Which is not incorrect because that's all they asked him to do. And I think because he was put into this box and said, and he also, because of where the Nuggets were at that time and continue to be, he's not really allowed, if you notice, or if you think back to when Michael Porter last two seasons in Denver, he, you know, if he were to make mistakes, if he were to struggle, like he will inevitably at points this season for Brooklyn. You think Jordi Fernandez is going to bench him? Absolutely not. How many games do you recall Michael Porter missing a couple open threes and then he's on the bench? How many times did Michael Porter get beat once on defense and Michael Malone yanked him out of the game? Whether Michael Porter was traded or not, I think Michael Porter needs his confidence rebuilt in some way. Because when we talk about Michael Malone maybe wearing on the players, I think there is no player that he probably wore on more than Michael Porter. And you could see, and it was just this vicious cycle, right? Because Michael Porter never really a great body language guy. But, you know, he'd miss a couple of shots, get yanked from the game, down goes his confidence, then he comes back in and he's kind of looks like he's pouting. He's not really being active. Like it just kept feeding into each other over and over and over again. So I think now that he's going to Brooklyn, like I get what he's saying. He's going to go to Brooklyn and he's going to look around and he's like, I don't have to bend the knee to anybody. I don't have to give way to anybody. I could be the man here, which is what I was supposed to be when I came into the league. Now, the same reason why he didn't end up in a place like Brooklyn is the same question that you have about whether Michael Porter is actually going to be able to spread his wings and showcase more of his game in Brooklyn, because injuries remain a concern. As much as Michael Porter has battled through the injuries, played through them, to his credit, they have hampered him significantly. But now in the offseason, where he's taking time away, and I guess he was in, some island that I could never afford to fly to when he was shooting this video. But I could understand where the wheels are turning in his head. And he's like, wait, they don't have Jokic. They don't have Murray. They don't have expectations. I'm going to be able to go there with a coach that I'm familiar with, by the way, in Jordi Fernandez. And whatever else I can do on a basketball court, I'm going to be allowed to show it in a way that I wasn't allowed to show it in Denver. Now, this is not a criticism of the Denver Nuggets necessarily. Now, I do think it's a little bit of a criticism of Michael Malone, but I think for the most part, it's just the situation he found himself in. The Nuggets didn't need him to do what, Atlanta needed Trae Young to do when they drafted him, or Dallas needed Luka to do when they drafted him, or they just didn't need him to do that. And there's only one basketball, as the saying goes, right? And if Jokic has the ball in his hands a lot and the next option is Jamal Murray, Michael Porter wasn't supposed to be a third option in the NBA. So I'm really interested to see what he does with this opportunity in Brooklyn. But my bigger point is, we talk about the change of scenery guys. I already kind of thought that with Michael Porter, but now there's an added dimension. Like, you know what? For so long, Michael Porter has been this thing with the Denver Nuggets. On a team without Nikola Jokic, without Jamal Murray, he might be capable of more. And we might look one day this upcoming season and say, wow, Michael Porter never did that with the Denver Nuggets. Now, I don't think that the Nuggets will regret whatsoever the trade. Because, again, I think that they got a better fit in Cam Johnson and the financial flexibility that they have gained by making this trade as well. It's a total win for the Denver Nuggets. I don't think we're going to be saying, man, the Nuggets really let Michael Porter get away. But that doesn't mean he's not going to flourish in Brooklyn. He might. And I don't know, maybe retroactively changes a few hearts and minds of Nuggets fans. Probably a little bit easier to do that when the Nuggets fans are like, well, we're happy with Cam Johnson anyway. So, yeah, good on Michael Porter. Maybe he was capable of more than we gave him credit for. But we like Cam Johnson. And you should like Cam Johnson. The more and more I look into, who Cam Johnson is, watching some of his games with Brooklyn, I mean, you like the trade more and more. And the fact that the Nuggets were able to get Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway and may not be done. Total win for them. Little win for Brooklyn getting the future first round pick, but maybe it could be a big win for Michael Porter as well. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on MPJ being allowed to spread his wings. And also Cam Johnson. Just ecstatic. He was on the podcast that JJ Redick abandoned to take the Laker job. He was on that podcast and just was so excited to play with Nikola Jokic, as he should be. very few trades are actually a win for all parties. This one actually could be. More Drive Time Sports after this. Seven one nine 1313 is the number. This coming in from the 719. I told you to give the ownership the benefit of the doubt when they made the GM decision, talking about the Nuggets. You were doubting them. I was. I absolutely was. Now, I saw what Josh Kroenke was trying to accomplish. I saw the vision. Right? Given the direction that the NBA has moved, having somebody as up on the new rules financially and a salary cap guy. I said you have a player development guy and you have a salary cap guy. And that's what Josh Kroenke was trying to have. I don't understand why you have to have both of them on equal footing. Was there a chance that the Nuggets could have taken John Wallace and what he brings to the table and Ben Tenzer and what he brings to the table and combine them into one human being? I think that human being exists. But I think the reasons why he went this direction they're numerous. I think it's about him taking back control of the organization, something that he admitted he gave too much of up when Calvin Booth became the GM. Like, I understood why Josh Kroenke was doing what he did, but I did have my doubts. 100%. And now I'm on the hook the other way, because if Cam Johnson doesn't work out with the Denver Nuggets, now I was siding with the co-GMs, and I was wrong. Although I'll say, if they come away empty-handed with this Jonas Valanciunas thing, this offseason does not become the grand slam home run it was. Still very good offseason, but that's kind of a big piece of this puzzle. Well, more on Jonas Valanciunas coming up at the top of the hour. But you're right. I doubted it. I was not alone. I hope you're chastising others in the media. I don't like to be singled out. And you did. You totally did. You're like, Josh Kroenke's done this before. You believed in him. I questioned him. And I was on the wrong side of it. Wrong side of it. I feel like it was my first show in like 10 days. I feel like I'm super amped up. I need to take a breath. I always try to incorporate the Olympic movement into what I do on this show as much as I can. I look at where we're at. I look at what we're surrounded by in terms of the national governing bodies, the museum, everything else. And I say, how could a local sports show in Colorado Springs not be all over the Olympic movement? And I've tried to be. There aren't always great opportunities to do it or plentiful opportunities to do it. But when I have the chance, I do. And this weekend was one of those opportunities, because the 2025 class of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame was inducted at the Broadmoor, and had the chance to talk to almost all the inductees, certainly all the inductees that were there, except Bodie Miller. Bodie Miller got past us, and then he was there to give his induction speech. But, I mean, to think about two Olympians in particular, Allison Felix, the most decorated track and field athlete, the American track and field athlete ever, and Kerry Walsh Jennings was part of the most dominant beach volleyball team in the history of the Olympics. Having a chance to talk to them, with them being in town for the Hall of Fame induction, both of them members of this class, 12 individuals and a couple of teams were inducted. And I asked Allison Felix, if there was something that she wanted people to take away from her Olympic career that is now culminating in a Hall of Fame induction, what would it be?
I think just how the Olympics has shaped me, and how it's given me so much, and I hope to have given back something, but just so many lessons learned. And I think we're all here, we love the Olympics and all it represents, and so I'll talk about that tonight in my gratitude.
And she did. She was very gracious. Everyone that stepped onto that stage on Saturday night could not have been more gracious. But it's funny, everything that Allison Felix has done and accomplished in her career, one of the greatest American Olympians ever. And she's, her first inclination is not that I was the best to ever do it, I'm the GOAT, anything like that. It was that she's grateful to the Olympics for what they have given her in her life. Now, Kara Walsh Jennings, I asked her, when she gets the call that she's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, is there one memory that sticks out to her that immediately comes back to mind, and a seminal moment perhaps in her career that led her to becoming a Hall of Famer? Here's Kara Walsh Jennings.
More than the memories, it's like the gratitude came, it's overwhelming, instant tears in my eyes when I got the call. And it's just like, holy cow, how is this possible? And then you start thinking about your partners and your coaches and your family that supported you the whole way. So that's kind of what jumped out first. But certainly after that, there's a reflection of what were the most meaningful moments. And I got nothing for you. It's just a culmination of all of the best moments in life. And it's not even the ones that are on the court, on top of the podium. It's literally all the hard times and the good times and the repair and the coming back together when things are hard that are my most special ones, because those are the ones that give you the tools to become a champion. So it was more an unfolding than any peak moment.
So, my biggest takeaway, though, as impressive as Allison Felix or Kara Walsh Jennings or Bodie Miller or Mike Krzyzewski or Serena Williams, these giants of sport, at their careers, and hearing from them, whether it was talking to them like I did Allison Felix or Kara Walsh Jennings, or it was just hearing and watching their induction speeches once the event began, my biggest takeaway from this Hall of Fame induction is, man, we just do not give the Paralympics the energy we should. Just collectively, me and myself included, I'll raise my hand. We get all in on the Olympics, and then, we kind of fatigue. And by the time the Olympics are over, it's like, okay, we're moving on with our lives. And now, but actually there's another event coming up. And the thing that stuck with me and will continue to stick with me, having experienced that night, is, man, these Paralympians, they're not going to be talked about in any GOAT conversation like Allison Felix or Serena Williams. Actually, two athletes that I remember last summer we talked about in the Go to GOATs tournament that we did. They'll never be thought of in that way. But you could put their accomplishments up against a lot of these Olympians, especially when you consider what they have overcome. Case in point, there's a Paralympian named Marla Runyon who I got to speak with, and she's part of this class of 2025. She was a Paralympian. She's legally blind. In 2000, and maybe you remember this, I don't, she competed in the Olympics. She was a Paralympian, was a decorated Paralympian. In 2000, she qualified for the Olympic Games and placed 8th in her event. She's legally blind, and she was able to do that. I mean, that's amazing. And I guess I don't want to compare and contrast and say one is more impressive than the other. It's awe-inspiring for a different reason than maybe the exploits of a Kara Walsh Jennings or an Allison Felix or a Serena Williams is. But it is, I actually kind of want to say it's equal. It's different, but it's equally impressive. She's legally blind and competed in the Olympics. And then you have another Paralympian that I had the pleasure of speaking with, Susan Hagel. She has a car accident that puts her in a wheelchair. And the last thing she was thinking of, obviously, when she was going through that is, hey, I'm going to become a successful Paralympian. But yet she becomes one of the most decorated Paralympians ever. Wins 6 medals over the span of 20 years, which is 3 Olympics because they boycotted the Moscow ones in 1980. In 3 different sports, spanning 2 decades, she's one of the best. And she's the only archer, whether on the Olympic or Paralympic side, that's in the Hall of Fame. And just to think about what Marla Runyon or Susan Hagel were able to overcome. I mean, it's amazing on the same level as what we marvel with Allison Felix and some of these Olympians. So maybe the sport, the games doesn't have the profile that the Olympics does, but I mean, these athletes deserve celebration just as much. And something that Marla Runyon said will stick with me for a long time, asking her the emotion she's feeling getting inducted into the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame.
You know, when your career was some time ago, things start to slip from the memory banks and you focus on other things. And this is like, oh yeah, I did all of that. I take a break from Zoom meetings and what's for dinner, mom, and all that, and just be like, oh yeah, that was a lot of work, and what an incredible honor that the USOPC in recognizing that and helping me remember.
That really stood out to me, and I liken it to, Randy Gradishar just getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it's not to say that any of these athletes that go into a Hall of Fame are spoiled or they take it for granted or they don't care. Like, from Allison Felix through everyone that I talked to was like, this was one of the biggest things to ever happen to them. They were so appreciative, so proud of their accomplishments and proud of each other. It was a great atmosphere to be in. So I don't want to make it sound like any Hall of Famer in any sport takes it for granted or doesn't care. But it's also true that to some, it matters more. And that was kind of the emotion behind Randy Gradishar getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Right? Because he waited so long. And there were times where he didn't think he was going to get in. And he just put it out of his mind. And Marla Runyon's kind of saying the same thing. Especially with Olympic athletes. I mean, they something I kept hearing is them toiling in anonymity, right? We don't know these people until most of these people, until the Olympics come around, and then the Olympics happen, and then we forget about them. Think about what that does to a career once your career is over. And so to be recognized for what they were able to accomplish and that they weren't forgotten. There's this feeling with Randy Gradishar that he had been forgotten by football history. And what a travesty that was. Well, a lot of people who were inducted into the Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame over the weekend kind of felt that way. Like they didn't expect it, or they gave up on the thought that they were going to be recognized for it, or they just had kind of put that chapter of their life behind them. And now it was a reminder, and all these memories and feelings come flooding back. It just, none of the Olympians or Paralympians took it for granted. All of them were incredibly gracious and incredibly appreciative. But there were some in that class where you're just like, yeah, it if it's possible, it means a little bit more to them. But it was a phenomenal event and one of the coolest things I've been able to do is to go to that event on Saturday. And good on the USOPC. Put on a great event as well. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show here on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on a Monday. Glad to have you. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Appreciate you listening, whether it's on your radio, online, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or whether you're watching the show and hopefully listening. It's kind of a multi-sensory experience on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. If you would like to participate in the show, be my guest. 719-247-1313 is the text and the phone line. And as always, available via X at all hours of the day at Gingerly Tweets. Perhaps you have a thought on these stories, which we group together in a trio and call What's Driving the Show. All right, we start with the next great hope of the Colorado Rockies.
I mean, we're so juiced and so excited for this opportunity, and it's pretty incredible. It's the Rockies.
That is the voice of Ethan Holiday. Yes, of the Holidays. Matt's son, Jackson's brother, taken 4th overall last night in the Major League Baseball draft by the Colorado Rockies. And for all the inadequacies and deficiencies of this franchise, when they have a chance to distract you from the absolute garbage that they are putting out on the field on a daily basis, they will do it. And they did not miss that opportunity last night. Because now, instead of, the final score of the Reds game yesterday, they were able to tweet out and post on Instagram pictures of baby Ethan at Coors Field with his dad. The Rockies don't just tap into, that kind of feeling that fan bases always get when they have a high draft pick, right? In every sport, you draft in the top 5, you automatically, that's the next face of the franchise, right? That's kind of the thought process. And Ethan Holiday would qualify as that really for any franchise that he went to last night. But the fact that he goes to the Colorado Rockies adds in another effect, and that is nostalgia. And nostalgia is the greatest drug on planet Earth, because if you think about Ethan Holiday, you think about Matt Holiday, you think about the slide in game 163, you think about Rocktober, you think about the World Series in 2007, and ultimately you feel warm and fuzzy about the Colorado Rockies. But here's the other part of this. Because of all of that, Ethan Holiday now becomes the most anticipated, eagerly awaited prospect in the history of that franchise. More than Tulo, more than Arenado, more than Brendan Rodgers, more than Greg Reynolds. Throw out anyone. Ethan Holiday, because of where he was taken, and more so because of who his dad is, he will have the weight of the entire franchise on his shoulders in a way that nobody else does. And nobody else has ever had in the Rockies organization. And it's a lot. It's quite the burden. But Ethan has a dad and a brother, and maybe his brother in this regard would actually be better for all of this. Like, Matt can certainly show Ethan, and he's already done it, to make him into a major league prospect, coach him up to be able to play at a high level. But Jackson, look at the way he was viewed in the Baltimore organization. But still, it doesn't go as far. This is the most significant draft pick in the history of the Rockies organization. Significant in how much is going to be asked of him. Despite being just finishing up his senior year of high school. It's a lot. And I sincerely hope that he does truly usher in the next, at this point, I'll settle for halfway decent Rockies team. But that's what it's going to be. He's going to be expected to be that because of who his dad is. And because of how high he was taken in the draft. And there's going to be, I don't know that there can be a countdown clock because there's not a specific time where somebody reaches the major leagues. By reference, his brother, it took him 2 years. But there will be a whatever that looks like, a countdown clock that every move Ethan Holiday makes in the minor leagues will be followed closely by anyone who cares about the Colorado Rockies. Normally, we wait till prospects get to about, double A, triple A before we really start digging in and watching them. Now not. If he goes to the Arizona Fall League, everyone's going to be locked in. And the Rockies will make sure of it. They will follow it because, again, any opportunity they have to distract from what is going on with their baseball franchise, they will take that opportunity. Signing Chris Bryant, the party deck, you name it. They capitalize on these opportunities. And Ethan Holiday is another opportunity for them to distract. Now, Ethan Holiday, the baseball player, could be everything the Rockies hope and dream he'll be. But for now, he's a nice distraction. Until he gets to the major leagues, the Rockies will chase every graphic about how they lost another baseball game but Ethan Holiday went 3 for 4 in Spokane. He's got the hopes and dreams of whatever Rocky fans may still exist on his shoulders. And it will be fascinating to watch and see how he deals with it. Story number 2 is don't get too cocky just yet if you're a Nuggets fan when it comes to Valanciunas. I saw a lot of people on social media yesterday when the Valanciunas deal was announced, and it is official now. Jonas Valanciunas is property of the Denver Nuggets. But I didn't understand this feeling of it's over. The Nuggets won. Jonas Valanciunas is going to be a Nugget, and he's going to be the best backup to Nikola Jokic since DeMarcus Cousins and all this kind of stuff. We're not done yet, folks. We're not. Because as recently as this morning, Jonas Valanciunas was quoted saying, "When I am sure, I will talk about everything." Sure about what? What's crazy, he's under contract with the Denver Nuggets. They own his rights. FIBA will not allow Jonas Valanciunas to leave the Denver Nuggets, abandon them, and go play in Greece. They won't allow it. But yet, Jonas Valanciunas is still talking like he's a free agent. Like he has Panathinaikos and the Nuggets bidding for his services, which is actually not really the case. The Nuggets have him under contract, but I think more about it. I'm like, yeah, I think he may have an option here. We don't know. The Nuggets keep talking like he's going to be there. But are they 100% on that? All I see are intentions. It's their intention this, intention that. And even if they're able to prevent him from going to Greece, which they absolutely can, is a guy that's talking like that, do you think he's all in on being a Denver Nugget? Do you think he's going to do anything close to what Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter did in Game 7? And fighting through massive injuries to try and help the Denver Nuggets win? Are you going to get the full 100% buy-in of Jonas Valanciunas? So, yes, he has no recourse in terms of just opting out of his Nuggets contract and going to Greece. But I think the question now is, do the Nuggets really want this guy? Because I think he's a far superior fit to the Nuggets than Al Horford would be. But I also, if Al Horford is choosing to sign with the Denver Nuggets, that means he's all in. Could that be better even if Valanciunas is a better fit and a better basketball player at this point in his career? Isn't the more motivated Al Horford what you would rather have? So until Jonas Valanciunas is sitting in front of a microphone at Ball Arena and saying, I'm happy to be here, I'm all in on helping the Denver Nuggets win a championship, or some version of those words, every time he's got a soft tissue injury and he decides not to play, every time I watch him on the court, I'm going to be wondering, is this guy 100% bought into this organization? And given what he has been made out to be, and this has gotten even further out of hand because now it's like the Nuggets have won him away from Greece. Now the expectations are only going to go up for what Jonas Valanciunas is supposed to be with the Denver Nuggets. So this isn't over. This isn't over yet, and I have some serious reservations about whether this guy is committed to the cause. Now, story number 3. I don't know that you can deny the commitment of Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey to the Denver Broncos because they did show up to rookie minicamp without contracts. But now things are getting real. Rookies are supposed to report on Wednesday. And Jahdae Barron is one of only 2 first-round picks that have not signed their rookie contract. And RJ Harvey is one of 30 second-round picks that have not signed their rookie deals. The reason for the latter is because the Houston Texans gave Jaden Higgins, a fully guaranteed rookie contract, which they're not supposed to do. But they did it. So now everybody who's drafted in the second round, including RJ Harvey, and maybe to some extent Jahdae Barron, or certainly it strengthens his resolve of I'm not signing the deal yet, because all these second rounders are holding out for guaranteed contracts, and I'm a first round pick. So I think what's going on with the second round draft picks does bleed into what's happening with Jahdae Barron a little bit. But I can't help but wonder if Jahdae Barron is, I don't want to say feuding, I don't want to make it out to be more than it is, bickering, negotiating back and forth with the Denver Broncos. He could be trying to keep the Broncos from doing the same thing the Cincinnati Bengals are doing to Shamar Stewart, which everyone is saying the Bengals are going to bangle. This is supposed to be easy. Should we not apply that same standard to the Denver Broncos? Why haven't they gotten their first round pick signed? I know why they haven't gotten their second round pick signed. Why isn't Jahdae Barron signed? 2 days out from the rookies reporting to training camp. Are they fighting with him over the same thing that the Bengals were chastised for fighting with Shamar Stewart about? And at some point, maybe it's not today, maybe if it's not even Wednesday, but at some point, something's got to give here. Either Barron and RJ Harvey have got to say, we're holding out over this, or they got to give in and sign their contract. So it immediately becomes the biggest storyline going into Broncos training camp. The first item of business is getting these 2 situations figured out. But I don't think it casts Greg Penner in a great light that he is one of 2 owners and the other one owns the Bengals that has not gotten what should be a routine piece of NFL business done yet. But it makes me think of Pablo Torre and Mike Florio's reporting last week about this grievance filed by the NFLPA about collusion amongst the owners. There is a line in there in this 61-page document that they were able to get their hands on where Greg Penner emailed somebody saying essentially the Broncos were undoing whatever precedent they were worried that the Browns started with Deshaun Watson. He said it specifically in his email. Not only will it benefit the Broncos not signing Russell Wilson to a fully guaranteed contract like Russell Wilson wanted, but it also will help every other owner, which actually should not be their concern. So, not for nothing, I think that the NFL owners did indeed collude to not give out any more guaranteed contracts. But with these things, I think they're intertwined because as much as Greg Penner has been celebrated because he puts new sod on the Empower Field runway there, he's still very much like all these other owners. That there are prices that are too high, that they will seek to band together and crush the NFLPA in any way they can do it. Greg Penner fitting in very nicely with the NFL owner fraternity, given all of this. But as far as the Broncos are concerned, Barron and Harvey showed up for rookie minicamp. So it wasn't a big deal. But at some point, you got to be willing to hold out over this. Are they going to do that? Or are they going to sign whatever contract the Broncos have in front of them? 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, while I was out, the Mountain West got a new member sooner than we all anticipated. And no surprise, the teams or schools leaving for the Pac-12, they're not happy about it. The Black Keys are hitting the road for their No Rain, No Flowers tour with Gary Clark Jr. and the Heavy, and we want to send you to see them at the U.S. tour stop of your choice. One winner will score a trip for two, including round-trip air, a 2-night hotel stay, and 2 premium tickets to see the Black Keys in concert in their chosen city. All you need to do is listen for the national keywords. They change throughout the day, so stay listening. And when you hear one of the national keywords, you text it to 95819. Let's practice, but for real, because this is the active keyword I'm about to give you. It is over. OVER. Text OVER to 95819, and you will be entered to win a chance to see the Black Keys at the U.S. tour stop of your choice. Keywords, I'll narrow it down a little bit. Starting at 6 a.m. till 7 p.m. Be playing keywords like every hour. So be listening. But the keyword right now is over, OVER. Text it to 95819, and you could win. Full contest rules at extrasports1300.com. The Mountain West Media Days are going to be starting up later this week in just a couple of days' time. SEC got going today. Big 12 was last week. And it might be a little interesting at Mountain West Media Days because of something that the Mountain West decided to do behind the backs of Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State. They decided without the input of the outgoing members, remember those schools are going to go to the Pac-12 next year. They decided to let Grand Canyon University in a year early. They were essentially supposed to replace one of the departing schools, and now they're joining now. So CSU will play Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon will play San Diego State. This has made San Diego State, Boise State, Colorado State perturbed. They're not happy because their plans for the upcoming year have been all changed. And, of course, because it is college athletics, a lawsuit has been filed. Basically saying that Gloria Nevarez, the commissioner of the Mountain West, and the school's presidents who voted to let in GCU a year early aren't allowed to do that without including the outgoing members that are going to the Pac-12. Now, it is important to note that GCU does not have a football team. So I don't know that this is going to dominate the conversation out in Las Vegas, because it's not like GCU is going to show up with their football coach. But if Gloria Nevarez is going to speak at any point or be around, people are going to ask about it. So just when you thought that the litigious stuff had been put aside, oh, no. And because we are Team Mountain West in this city, we side with the Mountain West. I do think this makes things very interesting this year for the Mountain West Conference. Now, they don't have a football team, but when you think of Grand Canyon, you think of hoops. It's going to be very interesting in basketball with GCU coming over a year early. You've seen their men's team and what they've done in the NCAA tournament. On the women's side, which is the side I care a little bit more about, given one of my many jobs that I hold, it'll be interesting to see what the women's basketball team at Grand Canyon University has, because last year's team went to the NCAA tournament, won the WAC, but they were loaded with seniors, none of which are back. I know we have to wonder with the COVID turn back. None of the seniors who played prominent roles for Grand Canyon University are back. They're all gone. And their coach, Molly Miller, who became somewhat of a social media, a viral darling, if you will, last season, she is now at Arizona State. So before, Grand Canyon was going to have kind of a year to reload, right? After losing so many seniors, losing their head coach, they're going to be able to bring in some players this year and then next year be ready to hit the ground running in a better conference. Now they're being thrown into the Mount West a year early as they're trying to replenish everything that they lost. So both basketball is where this is going to be the most interesting, but Grand Canyon is a school that has certainly, as former Switchbacks head coach Brendan Burke would like to say, they're heavily resourced. Grand Canyon University is. They may not have football, but that frees them up to put a lot of money into every other sport. So Grand Canyon they're going to be a factor moving forward. Whatever sport you want to throw out there, they're going to be a factor in the Mount West moving forward. And there are sports that start up in just a few weeks that Grand Canyon competes in. So all this is quite fascinating because there are sports that are getting going in the very near future that now have to account for Grand Canyon being in the conference. And they are going to be fully allowed to participate in their respective sports conference tournaments. They're going to be able to, if they are to win those tournaments, they will be able to go to the NCAA tournament of their given sport. So they are full-fledged members of the Mount West. No probationary period. No, you can play with us, but you're not going to be able to beat us out for an NCAA. No, they're all in. Which is, I don't know that we've ever seen this. A year early, a school being allowed into the conference that they're planning on moving to in the future. And look, I understand why the outgoing members of the Mountain West are a little bit sore about it, because until they actually do bolt for the Pac-12, they are still members of the Mountain West. But the sympathy that I will extend to San Diego State, to Boise State, to Colorado State is next to nothing. Right? This is a game of survival. That's what conference realignment has been about, survival. And they were able to do what was best for their school and go to the Pac-12. And I don't begrudge them. They made a decision that they felt was best for their school. But what, the Mount West is just supposed to be like, okay, and then like cry in their pillow at night that those schools are leaving? Or do they get going with the future of the Mount West? I'd be very curious The one question I have unanswered, why now? Like, what's the motivation? Why are you bringing in GCU now when you already had them coming in next year? I don't know that I've seen anything on that. But look, Mount West has got to look out for the Mount West. Now, could what they have done mean that they're going to owe a lot of money? They're already fighting this battle over how much they charge Washington State and Oregon State to play football against them last year. They're already being sued about that. Now you add this on top of it. I don't know those ramifications, but just the idea of the Mount West going on with their lives and doing what they think is best for them, it might be against the rules. It might be against the law, for all I know. But if you're looking for me to say poor San Diego State, poor Colorado State, poor Boise State, you're looking in the wrong place. Mount West has got to do what they can to survive. So, and not for nothing, the most important thing, I might add Phoenix to my travel calendar this winter. And I got to tell you, out of all of this, most significant development. I get to go to Phoenix. Big fan of Phoenix. That was going to happen one way or another, but 1 year early. I don't hate it. I don't hate the likely. And then watch, they only play GCU once. Air Force doesn't. It's here. So we'll see how all this goes. I mean, just when you think, everything is NIL now. It's all the house settlement. It's NIL. It's revenue sharing. It's this $20.5 million cap. No, conference realignment still very much happening. But it makes sense, right? Because with all due respect, the Mount West and the newly formed Pac-12 are second-class citizens in college athletics. Maybe even third class, because there's some argument going on between Brett Yormark of the Big 12 and Greg Sankey of the SEC. It might just be SEC and Big 10 are first-class citizens and everyone else is lesser than. But we did all this stuff with the conference realignment and the lawsuits and all of this kind of stuff. And now the highest level of college athletics has kind of moved on to the next thing. But everyone else has got to catch up, right? Big 10, SEC did their conference realignment. That's all done with. The Big 12, ACC. Well, now it's the Mount West turn and the Sun Belt's turn. And so this level of college athletics, the group of five, or the group of six now, I suppose, with the Pac-12, they're not able to kind of move at the same speed as the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC. They kind of got to wait for some dominoes to fall, and then they can do their thing. So they're on the conference realignment stage. And soon they will have to get to the $20.5 million cap in the NIL and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're already dealing with NIL, but you get what I'm saying. So add GCU, if you're an Air Force fan, to the list of rivals a year early. I know you had to ramp up your sports hate for GCU. Now you got to summon it now, because they are, barring any legal ramifications, they are a full-fledged member of the Mountain West. 719-247-1313. Last call for your text. I saved the most important topic of the show for last, and that is I saw Superman. And I will tell you what I thought about it next on Extra Sports 1300. Switchbacks are back in action this week. They had a week out like I did. They play Birmingham Legion on Saturday. Ronaldo Damas, leading goal scorer for the Switchbacks last year, plays for Birmingham now. So that'll be interesting Saturday night. But in the meantime, because I did not have the show last week, I was freed up to do things that I don't normally get to do. If you know me, the two things that I watch on television are sports and episodes of The Office, almost exclusively. But my youngest son had a birthday and wanted to see the new Superman movie. So because people in my business, apparently we're supposed to do this now, let me give you my review of the new Superman movie. Here's my review. It's good. And as much as I say it tongue in cheek that people in my business are supposed to do this now, if I say a movie is good, it's good because I dislike almost everything I see. When it comes to movies, I'm never impressed. I thought this new Superman movie was really good. And what I loved most about it, and James Gunn, the director who also directed Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're going to be, if I didn't tell you that and you watched it and you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you're like, is this made by the same guy who made Guardians of the Galaxy? Because there are some things that he does that I recognize from Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But James Gunn talked about this, and I appreciate. I don't need to spend so much time seeing a director's reimagining of Superman getting sent to Earth as a baby. Like, I get it. I know that happened. I know that's how he ended up on Earth. If you don't understand how Clark Kent got to Earth, then you just probably shouldn't see the Superman movie. And also, how are you able to be alive for as long as you are and not understand how Superman got to Earth? So there's a lot of, some people might say it's assumptions, and I guess it is. I like that he had those assumptions. We don't need to see it again. The last Superman movie, the Man of Steel movie, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. But like, it took a while to get to the good part because you had to go through the whole thing of him being sent off of Krypton. This movie just drops you right into present day. We're good to go. You know about his birth parents. You know about his adoptive parents. You know how he got there. You know how he gets his powers. Like, we're all on the same page. Let's get going. And I think that's what made it such an enjoyable movie. Still a couple hour movie, not super long, but not this long preamble of the origin story. It was just boom, Lex Luthor, Superman, let's go. I thought it was super entertaining. Highly recommend it. So the two, if you haven't seen Mission Impossible, the new one, very good. Superman, very good. One movie I did see as well over the weekend. I'm not going to review it because after what Skip Bayless did in his review of this movie, that's it for reviews. Nobody else review the movie Sinners. Not wading into that territory. I'll just say it's not as fun as Superman. I get what they were doing. I understand it. I appreciate it. If you're looking for a little bit more fun, and horror movies can be fun. right? So it's not because it's a horror movie, but there's obviously a deeper meaning to it. Some would say Superman has a deeper meaning to it. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole either. Superman's more fun. I'll say that much. I mean, I got a lot done this week. I saw 2 movies. So, but no more. No more. Back to Office reruns in sports. 719-247-1313. I did want to get to Brett's text talking about Ethan Holiday and how he carries the weight of the Rockies organization on his shoulders. There's going to be more expected out of Ethan Holiday than any prospect in the history of the Rockies. And a big reason why is because who his dad is. Brett is quick to remind me about Biff Galarraga. Remember Biff Galarraga? He came up in the system, I believe, at the same time as Rick Castilla, Vinny's son. And Brian Need, son of Ryan Need. David Need. David Need was his name. There was no Biff Galarraga. But there was Bo Bichette. Rockies passed on him, if you recall. They had 2 chances to draft Bo Bichette and didn't. So perhaps the Rockies are learning some lessons, maybe. Like, if we can take this easy win and people can not be mad at us as much for one day, if we just would have taken Bo Bichette. In addition to the fact that, by the way, Bo Bichette's a terrific baseball player. So further showing that the Rockies really don't know what they're doing. But they did not take Bo Bichette. They weren't able to take Jackson Holiday, to be fair to them. But they had the chance to draft Ethan Holiday, and they were not missing on that opportunity. I hope it works. I do. Obviously, Matt Holliday was great for the Rockies organization, one of the most prominent figures in the organization's history. My eyes are wide open with this Rockies team. If the Rockies start winning again, Bill Schmidt and Dick Monfort get 0 credit from me. Because I've seen it. The Rockies, if you're bad enough for long enough, eventually you're going to get a few good players in the organization, and you're going to be able to win some baseball games, right? It's happened before. That does not mean that the Rockies know what they're doing, because they don't. And what they would have done last night if Ethan Holiday went to the Seattle Mariners, I don't know. I don't know what they would have done. But proof that even the worst of us can be rewarded. The Colorado Rockies landed Ethan Holiday. Before I go, maybe these days, I don't know if this applies to you. I think it applies to many men 40 and older. If you're dealing with tiredness, low energy, it may not just be because you stayed up too late the night before, or you're working too hard. It could be that, but it also could be low testosterone, and that's where you need to get your life back with testosterone therapy at Low T Center. You take the test, you get fast results, and you start TRT with Colorado Springs' leading experts in men's health. And now it's easier than ever to do so with the new Synergenix Health app, an innovation in healthcare technology you're not going to find anywhere else. You can download it now or book an appointment while the test is still free at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Great to be back with you today. I was a little amped up, admittedly. Chill out, bring the level down. Not too much. You like to have good energy on the radio, but I felt like I was a little much today. But I'm excited to be back. I miss doing this, even though it was probably better for me to take a break for a week. Happy to be back. Training camp for the rookies starting up. Jonas Valanciunas, that saga. Calendar's going to start to pick up. Enjoy your evening. Home Run Derby tonight, if you're interested. And we'll get back together tomorrow at 3 here on Extra Sports 1300.